Hello and welcome everyone to our meetup. There are two meetups that are hosting today. Our presenter, it's InvestUp by Chicago and The Power of Passive Investing, which I host. We're very excited about our presenter tonight. Before we get to that, let me just share a few administrative slides with you. Let me just share my screen.
Come off of this thing now. Come off the iPhone.
Guys, if you're not on mute, please put yourself on mute if you need to speak. Can you see my full screen?
Yes.
Yeah, okay, perfect. So we have Ketan Patel presenting today on a capital raising fundamentals. And I know it's an interesting topic and in great demand, so a lot of folks are joining. And we will be sharing recordings for those that cannot stay for the whole thing or maybe late, so you'll get the recording in a couple of days. The usual legal disclaimer, I'm sure you've seen it before many times, but I do have to present it that this is for informational purposes only and not an advice. Housekeeping, please mute yourself while the presenter is speaking. If you have any questions, you can either post them in the chat, send to me, or ask yourself at the end. Ask presenter at the end. Feel free to post them in the chat box at any time. If you have any issues with audio or video, just connect with me. I'll be happy to help you. And add my email, alina@samofinancial.com, to your contact list. This way you will get the email with the recording and the slide that Ketan is planning to share. Our next event is in December. We're changing the frequency for this month and for December due to the holidays, and we'll have Anna Kelly talk about navigating COVID challenges in multifamily and buying apartments during this time. And finally, if you need to reach me, this is my contact information. There is also a link to a course that I put on Udemy. It's for folks that are interested in real estate but don't know what niche select for themselves. This course will help you navigate through these challenges and will help you select that best real estate investing niche for yourself. These are my slides. I'd like to give my co-host Chicago the stage so he can say a few words. Chike, please go ahead.
Yeah, definitely. I'll be brief. Thank you guys for coming out. As always, InvestUp, you guys can check us out. We're always doing events together with Alina. And if anything, however you found us, just use that same source and you can check us out. Next event will also be there as well. Thank you guys.
Awesome. Thank you, Chike. And now we are really happy to present Ketan Patel. I know it's an exciting topic. Everyone wants to learn and know what are the methods and the secrets that Ketan has to share with us. So Ketan, the floor is yours.
Okay, great. Thank you so much, guys, for taking the time. And thank you, Alina, for the opportunity. I'm just going to share the slide decks. And please confirm that you're able to see it.
We can see your full screen. Perfect.
Okay, perfect. So, capital raising is a very, very important and big topic. And what we'll be doing is I'll go over some basic fundamentals for you guys to keep in mind as you grow your real estate business, right? So what we could do is, okay, how to get most out of this webinar. In terms of capital raising, I don't know where you guys are, but think of a particular challenge or some kind of thing you have with your business, so it would help. Can you, Alina, you see everybody requesting the admission as well, right?
Yeah,
okay,
don't
perfect.
worry about it. I'll
Perfect.
take care of it.
So you start thinking about a particular challenge you have about the capital raising. That's first. And second thing, we are in the information age 2020. Information's being bombarded left and right? But there are a few critical things which I call insights. Insights are things that change the way you look at your business and how you look at yourself. So as you look at this presentation, you're going to get several insights or ideas, and I highly recommend take a note and immediately take action on it. And we have been programmed just to consume so much information that we forget the key insights. They are being lost in there and we don't take the action. So I urge you to, if something really speaks to you, a particular method or whatnot, definitely make sure to take action. And playing full out, I will ask some questions in the end. Definitely feel free to reach out. The more engagement you have, it'll be a fun and interesting presentation, okay? So just a little bit information on myself. I used to be a pharmacist and I started in real estate. My goal was to just get financial freedom and buy some properties. So I did that. I created a multi-million-dollar portfolio starting from $8,000. I did flipping, luxury construction. I raised over 10 million for apartment syndication. But throughout all this, I realized that my actual passion is actually coaching, impacting people, and the psychology of success. So I started studying the mindset. I've done coaching with Tony Robbins. My coach was trained by Tony Robbins. I've gone with Wim Hof, Dr. Joe Dispenza. I spent over $150,000 in the last 3 years to understand, what are the things that successful real estate entrepreneurs are doing differently, right? We all have the access to the same information. So, the thoughts and emotion, picking up patterns, breaking complex ideas, that's all my coaching expertise. I'm combining that with the real estate expertise. So that's my background. So very, very important thing. Before we begin anything, we have to know why we are doing it, right? So capital raising, developing the skill and doing things, devoting the time, money, and energy, it's important to know why it's very important, right? So number one thing is it will give you the confidence to find more deals. So give you an example, a few years ago, once I had done this, I had a database of investors. So an opportunity came in the Boston area for development. I needed close to $1 million, but I was very confident putting in the offers because I knew I have trusted database of investors that would be happy to look at the opportunity, right? That's the first thing, because a lot of real estate investors tell me that they get the good deals, but they are not sure if they will close because they don't have the money lined up. And then that kind of creates a little bit of ambiguity, right? It just doesn't make you feel good when you are not sure. So once you master the skill and build the database, your confidence would go up. That's one. Second thing, your opportunities in real estate would increase. So let's say you are into apartment syndication and you have built a database of investors. You could learn about self-storage and slowly migrate into that because you have your investor database, if it makes sense, right? And that's what happened to me. Once I was able to grow this database, I was able to syndicate into bigger properties. I was able to go into luxury developments, move across based on, what your interest, what your passions are. But basically having access to capital would increase that, because at the end of the day, it doesn't matter what asset class you buy, where you buy, and what you're planning to do with it, you will always need capital, right? So scaling your business will be easier as well once you have the capital. And of course, you need the technical knowledge of finding the deal, analyzing the deal, but that's fairly easy to acquire. And then the most important thing is the business is going to build on itself. So right now, most of my focus is just coaching, but I have that business of 100 plus investors. So I keep getting referrals and I don't have to do more work. I don't have to do marketing. If I want to grow, I could do it. But if not, and same thing goes for you. If you have a database that's generating $1 million or $2 million of equity and that works for your business, now it's going to build on itself, right? So there's a lot of benefits in. Typically in the real estate world, we start finding the deals, analyzing the deals and market, but we don't pay as much attention to the capital raising part because it is a little tedious job, right? And I'll demystify it for you as much as I can. So now, as we get into the capital raising journey, very, very important thing. Your story is very, very powerful. Two things. First is your personal story about how you got into real estate or why you're passionate about real estate. And then the second thing is your brand story. So a lot of times what happens is I see my clients do this, other people do it. When they are talking with potential investors, they're really, really busy educating them about the deal, right? We have to educate them about the deal, but that part before that happens is very important to educate them about yourself and your passion. And that way they could trust you, know you, and connect you. And the faster you could do that with your story, the chances of you securing the investments go further, right? And I didn't knew this, by the way. A lot of the things that I'm going to present here, I learned it from ups and down and things like that. I wish somebody had educated me on all of those things. So in the beginning, I would educate people on, hey, this is the best market, and we have great team and great return, but I wasn't telling them about my story. And then I started sharing them my story, that I was a pharmacist, and I knew that passive income is very, very important because I didn't want it to do this job, and how I started buying single family and one thing after another, right? So whatever your personal story is, do not minimize it. Definitely share important things that light you up for real estate, whether it's taking care of tenants or you just enjoy the analytics, and that gives your investor a chance to know a little bit about your background and your history and connect with you, right? Which opens the door for a better relationship down the road. And you don't need to necessarily craft something, but just what do you really enjoy? If I ask you, why exactly are you doing real estate, or why are you doing apartments, tell me things that are like very, very unique about you. They all go into your personal story, right? Now, brand story would be about your real estate brand, about your company. What are the things that make your company your company? And why would I care as an investor? So for me, for example, I would tell them that I really like tight underwriting. I like to have buffer. I like long-term loans, whatever those things apply for your vision, right? Maybe you don't like big metros. You like smaller tertiary markets, and you have a reasoning for that, right? So you could include that in your story. So the more people get that idea on what you are doing and why you are doing, they could connect with you with that information on a deeper level. So your brand story, your vision, if you truly believe that in your neighborhood or your market, tenants don't have access to quality properties and they are not treated right, so it's your mission to give affordable housing, or treat tenants properly, or bring an older neighborhood back to life. Whatever your brand story is, very, very important to communicate those elements. How you're finding deals, if you just have a special method, or whatever like you underwrite, or things you do, right? You want to share all of those things, so that way the trust with the investor begins forming, right? Now we will move on to developing your ideal investor profile. So everyone on this call has a different kind of business, right? And we might look for a different kind of investor. So very, very important. And I didn't do this, by the way, in the beginning. So I'm reaching out to people left and right just to get the investments. And it wasn't working that well, because later on I realized, so for example, my ideal investor profile is I'm looking for people to invest passively into C plus B minus multifamily. They are going to make 7 to 8% preferred return. I'm looking them to invest $50,000 a year on a passive basis, and then invest again and again. It's very clear. There's no gray area. I'm not looking for them to do a partnership or make a custom structure or anything like that. And I want them to be medium risk, medium reward on my value add multifamily, right? So if somebody it's extremely conservative, it might not work, because value add multifamily is a middle risk return. Somebody's looking for speculation, high risk, high return. value add multifamily is not for them, right? So having a little bit of clarity on what profile suits for your business. If you are doing a flipping business and if you're looking for investors, you know that the term is 1 year there, right? So you want to ask yourself, what is the risk level of your ideal investor? You know, what year term is normally? For me, it's 5. So 7 or 10-year deals, I just don't present to them. And it's okay, you don't need to get it all fine-tuned, but at least have a beginning criteria that you could fine-tune as you go along for your investor profile. You also want to understand what are the roadblocks. So for my passive investors, their roadblocks are they are busy professionals. They are doctors and lawyers and pharmacists, and they just don't have the time and energy to really understand everything and analyze. Their time block is challenged. And for a lot of them, it's fear. They just haven't done passive investing in another state with somebody on a $40-50 million deal, so they are nervous. That's my profile. Your investor might have some other challenge. So if you know these challenges, then the content which we'll talk about, you could gear towards solving your investor profiles challenge, right? And then this would bring me into the next thing, which is the identifying your niche. Also helps to do this as well. So for me, naturally being a former pharmacist, it makes sense to connect with doctors, right? If you are an engineer or if you have affinity for golf and you're an active part of a community there, you might just find a niche there. And again, it's just a trial and error, trying things out. This way you just could see who responds to you better. If you are in construction, whatever industry you are, basically, right? You want to try to capture that, try to see if there are investors there that you could educate, if there's a need in the market, rather than just going out there and just trying to be everyone to, everything to everybody, right? Just your message is not going to be as targeted. So some simple questions for you is, figure out where you went to school, where you work, where you're active, who would you like to talk to? What kind of people, what kind of groups of people is natural for you to connect. So this will give you some starting points, right, to go over marketing towards your investors. So if beginning, step 1 would be to build your investor list, right? And your list starts with your inner circle, because at the end of the day, we'll talk about it in the next slide. All you need is trust and authority. Those are the 2 biggest things that the investors are looking for before they invest in your deal. People in your inner circle, somebody you golf with, you went to school with, or through work, they already have trust. They already know you. So half of the work is done, right? So you might want to make a list. And very, very important, I did that. I made this list, and I connected with some friends from pharmacy school 5 years ago, and a lot of people weren't interested, but some people were like, hey, I invest in apartment syndication. This is right up my alley. So being resourceful and making sure you put everybody on list. And this is where I get a lot of objection from people. Everybody tells me they don't want to seem salesy. And they don't want to just reach out to people, and they feel uncomfortable, right? So here's what you have to know. If you're a real estate investor, and if you are presenting good opportunities to these investors, you are helping them. It's not just about you and your business. You're giving them an opportunity to grow. So think about it in terms of that, not about making a sale, but educating somebody, connecting somebody. And if it's a good fit, they'll come with you. If not, it's okay. And the beauty is you could impact somebody's life. Somebody invested with you one time, and now they got over their fear or nerves, and now they might see some other opportunity. It has happened with a lot of my doctors that are actually buying another business or doing something else, because the key is not, for a lot of these investors, it's not making that 8% or 10% return, but it's just the fear. They just don't know who they could trust, get educated. So you could be that resources to the friends and families and things like that, right? And then you educate them about the risk and the reward. You present the opportunity in like a neutral fashion. And then in the end, it's their decision. And that's the approach I use. And I felt uncomfortable to reach out to friends too, but you just take a genuine interest and connect with them and say, you know, what you have been up to and whatnot. And at some point they'll ask you what you are up to. And then you could tell them, hey, I just transitioned into real estate, or I'm doing the real estate and whatnot. And naturally, some people would be like, oh, that's pretty cool. I've always thought about it. I've never done it. Or keep me on your list or something like that, right? So just genuinely connecting, curious about their life, and you will find some people, guarantee you, if you just make a list and being resourceful. And the limiting belief of, you know, appearing salesy, if you think about yourself, then you're gonna feel that. But if you think that you're creating an opportunity for them, then it's not all about you, right? So this is how you grow a beginner inner circle list. And trust me, you don't want to think in the beginning, if you have a little extra time and if you don't have investors right now, it's okay, just put everybody on the list. I got surprised. I connected with a childhood friend that I haven't talked to in 10 years, and he's in tech industry, and he's like, wow, this is great, I'm tired of investing in stocks. And he just loved this thing, and he, you know, made some good investments, and we even exited out of the deal. So he's very happy. And then I got referrals and whatnot. So you never know who might be interested in your deals and who's looking for real estate investment. So in the beginning, I would encourage to have a big expensive list, right? Now, if you have already done that, or you're already in the advanced phase, now we are talking about marketing or growing your investor database or your investor list, right? So what happens is, it's a busy world out there. It's Facebook and LinkedIn and Meetup, and there's so much things going on. And if you don't have a lot of bandwidth, you're busy finding deals, maybe you have another job or something like that, you want to be very, very strategic with your time, and you want to have a strategy. So you want to use the first lead engine. And by lead engine, I mean whether you are doing a webinar to educate investors, or sending messages on Facebook group, or connecting with people on LinkedIn, anything that you do, make sure to only have one engine in the beginning. Because sometimes we get excited, we have a lot of things going on, but you have limited energy. So you're not able to keep the consistency up to get the leads and the results in, right? So you want to just pick one engine, and you will be refining it, generate the content, provide the value, and that would drive investor calls. And as you do this, you will get more and more ideas what works, what doesn't work. So once it proves a little bit, you could scale it. Because I guarantee you, any engine you pick, there's going to be a lot of pieces to refine over time. So you do a webinar, 50 people registered and 10 people show up. So now you have to be like, how do I keep them more engaged? Then next thing is, how do I have them book a strategy call, et cetera, right? So the goal is picking something that you are passionate about. So if you, for example, I'm not a big fan of writing, I enjoy speaking, then if I'm trying to do blogs, it's not the best use of my time. I'm kind of forcing myself to do it, right? And there's all kinds of people out there that are generating investor capital by only writing blogs and doing nothing. And there are people that never write. They only do speaking in meetup groups or whatnot, right? So it's important for you to know, first of all, what charges you. Do you enjoy writing or do you enjoy speaking, right? And once you figure that out, now you could start generating the content, providing value to investors. And how do we do that? So you start talking about your story, what you have learned in real estate, and talk about the benefits of the market or your company, things like that. Educate them a little bit. So for example, I'll tell people on multifamily investments, these are the top 3 things they need to be looking for. They need to look at the expense ratio for the apartment. If they don't have a lot of time, just look at these 3 things and they'll give you a good idea on the investments. For self-storage, it might be something else. For flipping, it might be something else, right? So generating this content, providing the value, and the goal is to drive them to book a call with you, because in the call, you could dive in a little bit deeper. learn about them, their challenges, and then that would help you to determine, how are you closing them, offering them opportunities, right? And once you prove something this works, then you just scale the model. So here's the very, very important part: investor communication. So as we talked about, when I started, I used to think that return is the number one thing that the investors are looking for. Turns out it's not true. Um, all investors are looking for trust and authority, or you could call it credibility or competence. And where does trust comes from? Trust comes from knowing and liking each other, and authority or competence comes from showing them that you know what you're doing in the real estate world, whether you have done 1 deals or 3 deals. That's why we want to talk about that track record part, right? How do we build it? And different investors move at different space. I have investors that I connected and they invested 2 years later. I have somebody that I've never even met that invested 200,000. They are on the forum and we just had 1 phone call and then they were just ready at the right time. So everybody moves at different place. Some people have done the research, they are good to go. Some people are just toying with the idea, right? So all your communication, your goal throughout the communication is to build the trust and the authority. So when they think about real estate investments or passive investments, they're thinking about you. How do we do that, right? So number one thing is your unique story. So for me, it would always be a pharmacist that was interested in real estate investments as a hobby. And then it became my career. And I love educating others around the power of passive income and things like that. For you, it could be something else. Very important to have that story figured out so you could build the trust. Then your track record, your experience, if you have done some deals, what are the top 3 things you learned from that deal? Or what would you advise other people to make sure they don't get into this trap, right? For the real estate deals or market. And I'm sure if you're in the business, you're learning new things every day. So you just kind of look at it from an investor's perspective and start sharing it. Share about your past results and things like that, right? And the thought leadership platform is what we talked about earlier, having a blog, a podcast, a meetup, anything like that. But the critical thing is just start with one thing. Don't try to do everything, and also do something that's fun for you, because when you enjoy the actual process, you're going to bring a different quality of content and work, right? Versus if you're just writing blogs and you're like, I'm not getting any leads, I hope somebody bites. It's just, you're just going to get drained. So very, very important when you do the number 3, the platform, pick something that you actually enjoy. You're having so much fun with it that the outcome, you don't care that much about it. Like you want it to happen, but you're not tied to it, right? If you already have investors, getting the testimonials from them. You could also do something where you share interviews of other real estate investors, right? They are investing passively, and you could start interviewing them, and you could convert that into a blog or whatever you want to do, right? So the goal with all of these activities, you don't need to do it all at the one time, but the goal is to establish trust that they could do business with you, you have good character, all that, and then you're expert, you're passionate about doing real estate in your specific field and your specific strategy and things like that, right? Now, marketing troubleshooting. This is where it gets interesting. So let's assume you've already done this, and this is, it could take you 2 months, it could take you 6 months, depending on how much you're getting into the story, profile, niche, initial list, growing the list, the actual marketing, the communication, right? You've done all this thing and you'll get the recording, so you could come to this down the road in 6 months or a year or whenever, just to see, because this is very, very important. This is what I see consistently with my clients, group, one-on-one, with myself and other people in terms of marketing. If you're marketing and if you're not getting the investors, all it comes down to is 2. First thing is, are you getting enough leads? If you are getting enough leads, but they are not converting into calls, then, we know what to fix on. But these 5 things, if you fix these things, it's absolutely pretty much, I could guarantee you that you're going to get investors, right? So the first is strategy. So we have to know that every one of us has different skill sets. We have different interests, different personality, different business. So we want to create a strategy that works for us and our business. Just because podcast has worked for me doesn't mean they'll work for you, right? So very important to create your strategy and also revise it. So you created it, you executed it, 90 days went by. If nothing happened or you got some feedback, you want to tune it. A lot of people don't tune the strategy. They just have the strategy and they just keep going with it, right? That's number one. Second thing is leverage, leverage, leverage. We have to leverage the content we produce. So if you are hosting a podcast, you could take micro snippets out of it. If you are writing blogs, you could start using them to make short videos. Or if you make short videos, you could convert them into blogs, right? You have 10 or 20 blogs, you could convert that into a mini ebook, right? Very important to the effort that you have already put out. You want to leverage it basically as much as you can for marketing. A lot of times people are not leveraging, they're producing new content over and over, and it takes time and energy and money. The number three is consistency. So doing something consistently, whether you're publishing a blog or podcast, you just have to stick with it and not just try one thing today and then 2 months later you try something else, right? And this links down to number four. We always underestimate what it will take. So I'm in Boston. If I have to go to New York, it's about 300 miles, right? I could look at my car's dashboard. I know where I am. It's pretty clear. But in your mind, conceptually, if you have not raised any dollars, or if you have raised 500,000, and if you want to get 20 more investors, your brain cannot process that. It's not like a linear thing like driving a car. So, and oftentimes based on past experiences and other factors, I don't want to go off tangent, but we typically underestimate it. So in our mind, what we are thinking is, if I put 20 episodes or 20 blogs or 3 meetups or something like that, I should have investors calling me left and right. And I've done that, and it didn't work like that. So very important to be patient. It takes a little bit of time. So consistently executing your strategy, using the leverage over time, it will produce results. It has to produce results. But most of the time people just give up too early. You write 10, 15 blogs and then I think it's not going to work. And number five, subconscious belief. So that feeling where you're like, I don't know if it's gonna work, let me give it a go. That's not a good place to be in. You're doing something, you want to be excited, inspired about it. But deep down, if you believe, well, there's so many people hunting for money, I don't even know where I stand in all this. Is it even going to work? And when you have that feeling, I could guarantee you it's not going to work. Because the strongest force in human behavior is to be consistent with the beliefs we have created. So deep down, if the belief is that I can't get investors because of XYZ, then what's going to happen is that's going to show up outside in your behavior. So very, very important to be aware of that. And it's very normal to get discouraged and get sidetracks, and things like that happen to me hundreds of times. You just want to get back and just kind of, stay on the course. So anytime if you are having challenge with your marketing down the road and things are not working, I would request that you come back to this slide and look at these 5 things. And I guarantee you, one of this 90% of the time, it's going to troubleshoot. Very rarely somebody has some other challenges, right? Now, very, very important thing to know as well, top 4 reasons why investors won't invest with you. And I've done more than 100 investor calls, securing all the funds. And I sat down, and at the end of the day, I realized that it's always these 4 things, always. The one is lack of knowledge on the investor's part. So the investor is not really equipped to understand, what this syndication investment's all about, right? They are not sure. 8% pref and waterfall structure and 70-30 and what's going on. They just don't have that knowledge. They don't really know what the risk is, what the reward is. They just don't, and that's easy to fix. If that's the case, you're educating them around those topics. That's that. Second thing, and by the way, nobody would tell you this. Investors would never tell you that I don't trust you or I'm fearful or something like that. Very rarely they will tell you. So a lot of times the challenge is fear. So what happens is, think about it. You guys are already in the business of real estate, right? We are in the business of real estate. So we see deals day and night. We do these things. And for us, this is all normal. For somebody outside looking in, they just haven't done this. They are practicing law or doctor or whatever they are doing, right, in their world or business. They are not in this world. So they are really fearful of losing money. What if this doesn't work out? They don't understand the LTVs and the things that we really take it for granted. Like for us, it's just like we could do the numbers in our sleep, right? So you have to sense that thing. They wouldn't tell you that, but in the call, you will have to sense that. And then once you sense it, then you could slowly walk through them. As real estate investors, it's our job to kind of educate them and lead them, right? And not to force a deal, but just lead them and educate them, right? And I educated my investors that, listen, you investing 100,000 in this deal and making $10,000, I know it's not going to change your life, but the key is getting over the fear, because once you go over this hump and invest in a deal, I guarantee you're going to look for deals everywhere. They were already in your inbox. You already know people, but you never pay attention to. Your worldview is going to change a little bit. And some of my investors started like buying actively themselves or flipping or whatnot, right? So the fear part is big. The third piece is the trust and the authority. So the piece that we talked about here, right? Maybe we haven't done it correctly. Maybe they are waiting for it. So they just don't trust you. They are not that bonded with you, or they just doubt that, you really could handle their money properly, right? That's a big factor as well. So we fix that. We fix that by going here and revamping all of our investor communications and all of those things, right? And then the fourth thing is non-alignment. I have some investors, they're looking for 10, 11% preferred return, which is not going to happen with my multifamily deals, which is okay. Or they don't like the particular market or something like that, right? So it's okay if what you're offering is not in alignment with them. There's nothing we could do about that. But number 1, 2, and 3 is very important to be aware of it. So as you grow your capital raising business, as the number of investors grow and you're doing more phone calls and you're worrying, why are these people not converting? Then you could ask yourself, what is it going on? Are they not aware of how to analyze the deals? Is that their challenge? Or they don't trust me enough? Is it the fear part? And once you know this, you could take action steps to mitigate that, right? So the whole process, the fundamental process looks like you understand why it's important, because without this skill, the real estate business will be limited. You cannot buy bigger deals. You cannot buy frequently because the capital would be tapped out. And I realized that years and years ago that I could only invest so much of my own savings. I need to make it happen, right? And creating the powerful brand story, personal story, developing the profile, finding your niche, and building your investor list with your inner circle, getting over the limiting beliefs, growing the list, which is the marketing portion, and then the investor communication fundamentals, and then the marketing troubleshooting. Obviously, there's many more things that will come into it, but if you just have this framework understanding, it would help you a lot in going through your journey. And then the reasons why investors don't invest with you. So you could look at your marketing material, your communication, your emails, your website, and address those things as you go along. And everything is basically a cycle. So it's just not an on-off switch. You start with what you know, the best you have, you take some action that will give you some feedback, which will drive more clarity. more action, feedback, clarity. It just kind of goes in cycle, right? It took me 4 or 5 years to develop all these things, but now you have that advantage to know all of these things and just start from a good foundation as you start your journey. So I think we are right at time. We are doing good on time.
Yep,
And
yeah,
this
very
kind of
good.
finishes the presentation, but we could open the floor for a question answer.
Excellent, Ketan. No, this was a phenomenal presentation. Thank you so much. A few questions came in already, so we're going to start with that. One question I had on the slides that it kind of often comes to me from other syndicators. You mentioned that it's good to connect with your network and share with people your journey, what you're doing, and because in your case, you as a former dentist have been connecting with other dentists and doctors. So if someone is, for instance, in a completely different field, let's say in this case it was a teacher,
Yep.
so their assumption, and they know from their own experience that the teachers are not making that much, and they in a lot of cases are not even accredited investors. Do you still think that it makes sense to reach out to the teachers because that's their surrounding, or should they build out a completely different avatar?
That's a great question. So if you already know in the beginning that it's going to be a challenging, what you could still do is the people that are in the teaching profession that are really close to you, you could still reach out to them and see if they have any referrals or if anybody they could connect you. Because the thing is, the trust piece happens very quickly when somebody introduces you to somebody they know or they're in your circle, versus finding somebody online that you just haven't met. Absolutely, that's fine. But in the beginning, it's a little easier if you just have a common chain or anything like that.
So the avatar would still remain teachers for this person.
So what they could do is they could just do a quick trial, reach out to, if they already know that the teachers are not going to, then just maybe, and it depends if they are doing some kind of business where they don't need the accredited investors. Like some people are doing smaller flips, or they are doing promissory notes or second mortgages where they could take them out and the amounts are lower and things like that. It might work out. If not, then just have a different avatar.
Excellent, great answer. Next question: did you invest in a few deals first as an LP? If so, what did you learn and use from your LP experience?
Yeah, great question. So what I was doing was I was buying these 3 to 5 unit buildings, and I built my portfolio for rental income. One day I realized I was at a wedding full of all these doctors and pharmacists, and I'm like, all these people are doing nothing with their money, and I want to break it into the syndication, but I didn't knew much about it. I knew the theory about it. So I invested in a syndication deal as an LP. And that was my first deal. And I just realized that this is a very interesting avenue. And the time and energy that goes into finding a smaller single family or triple decker, there's a lot of time and energy, and a lot of investors don't realize it. So I realized that. And then I educate that to my investors that, yes, you are making the 8% return and whatnot, but you are cutting the check. On an average deal, the time to do the due diligence and talk to agents and do the properties, it's a lot of time, and it's not worth for you if you're already making money with your business or you're a professional, right? So I learned the value of time with that investment. I also learned how for me, it made sense not to have a little bit of diversification, not to worry about anything. There are teams in place and structures. They are taking care of everything. And that was a great deal. I made like 40% in 2 years. We exited, and it was all on a passive basis. And I knew the structure. I did a couple of investments, and then I started bringing investors.
That's a great answer. Yeah, thank you so much for that. How can you feel confident and project confidence in yourself to investors if it's your first deal? think I know what you're going to say, but go ahead.
Yeah, yes. The first deal is definitely challenging, right? So the first thing is you have to look at your track record from the past too. We always have something we have done. Maybe it wasn't in real estate, but maybe you got the award for sales at your job, or you pull something else, right? So you want to remind yourself of that, because as human beings, it's very easy for us to forget the accomplishments, right? We do something, we forget it. Now we are on to the next challenge. So I would say, first of all, look back. And I guarantee you there's going to be something you're very proud of, something that you're able to do. So use that energy, use that resourcefulness. And then on top of it, if it's your first deal, I'm sure if you have a mentor or a coach or a partner or anything like that, just educate yourself as much as you can, more than that's necessary. So when you communicate with investors, they know that you have really gone above and beyond in doing the research, and you are not just learning couple basics and doing a deal. You have just gone farther. Talk with people that have already done few deals and just kind of learn from them what were their critical mistakes and things like that. So if your investor is asking you those questions, you're already prepared because you're done some work around it.
Amazing. Thank you. What is the framework for the initial conversation phone call with a potential investor from your list? Should it be a phone call or in-person meeting?
So, in-person thing right now is a little different, but it depends on the phone call would be fine, unless if you just have extra time and if you just have another personal relationship, then you want to just meet in person, but otherwise phone call would be fine.
Great. Next question. If you don't have any experience in real estate and if you don't have a great story, what do you do?
If you don't have any experience in real estate, then I'm sure, like, if you think about it, there's no real estate investor that didn't had zero deals first. Everybody had zero and then they got to the one, right? So, and it is challenging. So you want to talk with as many real estate investors as you can that have done the first few deals and learn from them. And like I mentioned earlier in the conversation, education is your key at this point. Knowledge, building the models. If you haven't done the deal, because knowledge is the precursor to the experience. Before you do the deal, what are the fundamentals and numbers and markets? So reading books or podcasts and blogs and immersing yourself to the point where it just becomes very second nature to you. That would help. And then the power of the story, and a lot of the things I shared here, you don't necessarily need it all in place right from the beginning, but these are all the fundamentals you need if you are looking to raise $2 to $5 million a year, right? So if you are beginning, you don't need to execute perfectly and have everything in order. It's okay. But as you grow along, these things are must if you want to raise consistently more amount of money in a systematic manner.
Excellent. Do you use social media to connect with people in your field or choice you're targeting?
I do use LinkedIn. And Facebook ads and all of those things.
What is the best system or software for keeping track of investors or potential investors?
I would say in the beginning, Excel sheet. Just makes there are all kinds of fancy softwares out there, but I personally like to make things simple and easy. So there's a thing called Airtable as well. It's a fancy Excel sheet where you could add photos and things like that. So I use the Airtable, and that should suffice.
And do you add photos of your investors as well?
What is it?
Do you add photos of your investors to their profile?
Yes. So the sponsors have the portals for the investor where they could download the tax return and all of those things as well.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Okay, next. I found that investors fall into two groups. Number one, investors that understand and get it right away. And the others fall into the fear group where they can't be passive investors and they feel they need to have some control in the investment. Is there a process where you can focus more time on the first group that gets it?
Yes, so it's a great question, right? So it all depends on your personal strategy and your interests. So you are somebody that likes to educate people and you're okay with the timeline of moving them from them having no experience in real estate to educating and converting, that works. For some people, it doesn't work. They just are too busy. They have perfected their other business, real estate, and they just want to plug investors left and right. So their ideal investor profile would be, and they would do that in their marketing messaging. They only want to attract experienced real estate investors. So they could just talk about the deal, the numbers, and just get into it, right? So for you, it's important to ask you what works for you. For me, I'm okay with educating them. And that's why you could make videos or ebooks and things like that. So you don't need to necessarily do it one-on-one, right? You could record videos and things like that, and you could use them to educate. And then the fear part, that happens a lot with new investors, and I love that. I love educating them and telling them about how to move past it and things like that.
Excellent, great answer.
Thank you.
Next question. Are you a co-sponsor in all your deals? If not, what kind of structure are you using to take your investors in other deals?
So personally, I prefer being the co-GP on the apartment syndication deal. So the money is going directly through the PPM into the entity that's holding the property, and they are buying the partnership shares. That's what I prefer. But I know there's all kinds of ways you could do fund of funds and all kinds of entities to bring in the money to the deals and partner and all that.
Excellent. Okay, let's see. Where do you find the operators group that you raise money for?
Okay, so that's a good question. So for me, it's just I've done heavy networking over the years, where I'm meeting people in events all over the US. And then I know other people that have done capital raising. So I network with them. So I know their sponsors. And then I just subscribe to the newsletters and Google searches. So I find sponsors that way. So I basically curated a list from these different events in different avenues to have a database of sponsors to raise money for.
Got it. How frequently do you communicate with your investors, Ketan?
Okay, so on the deal basis, we like to do the monthly emails on the multifamily side, just telling them about the occupancy rates and if we're having a pizza party at the multifamily or taco truck, those kind of things. And then on a quarterly basis, we send them the P&L and financials and things like that. So in terms of deal tactical, that's that communication. On a company side, it's your preference. Generally, people like monthly newsletter with recap or 2 times a month, something like that. Keeps everything updated, sharing your blog articles and things like that.
Yeah, no, absolutely. You mentioned a few times, and probably some of them were in our private discussions, how mindset is essential part of this business.
Yep.
What would you recommend to folks that are potentially not familiar with the mindset change, or maybe looking to change their mindset, just don't know where to start? Any maybe books recommendations or specific trainings that you would recommend them to go to?
Yep. Great question. This is what I love. I absolutely love the psychology of the success in real estate, and I'm just fascinated by it, right? So that's why I'm bringing meditation to neuroscience to behavior change. How does that really affect? So the step one is just to be aware of what that challenge is. A lot of times, think of a fish that's always swimming in the water. The fish is not even aware that it's in the water because water's everywhere. So same thing happens with us. The beliefs that are holding us down or the fears, we are floating in it where we are not even aware. So the first thing is I would urge that once a week you take 1 hour or 2 hours. I used to take 2 hours, I've been doing this thing for years and years since I was a pharmacist. Completely disconnect, your phone shut off, you're not available to the world. And in those 2 hours, you ask yourself some critical question. what would you like to achieve and where you are right now, and what kind of support do you need? Do you need a strategy? Is your challenge the technical education? Or no, I know the technical education, I'm just afraid to pull the trigger, right? Or I'm just worried, what if I fail? So you want to get clarity on what your challenge is for that mindset. If it's the strategy, if it's not taking action, if it's fear, if it's clarity, and you figure that out. So if you go out there for 2 hours a week consistently and write these questions and listen to books or something like that, eventually you'll know the answer, and then you know how to fix it. If it's fear, you know how to fix it this way. If it's a strategy, this is how you fix it. And I'm a big fan of Tony Robbins and Dr. Joe Dispenza. So I like that, but there's a lot of resources out there, just anything that jives with you in terms of mindset. I can't think of a particular like book. There's just so many good books out there. Old school, Think and Grow Rich is just a gold standard for a long time. We have One Thing from Gary Keller, which is all about the productivity and developing the focus, which is very important in this noisy, distracting world, right? We are jumping from one to another place. So
Yep. And okay, someone posted your website and they're asking, does your website have your current project you're working on?
yes, so I have, the only thing is for me, I'm going through some changes because I'm working on getting a broker dealer license, and this is like a very different segment and different piece. Not sure if it's really applicable to everybody, but if you're raising capital, the broker dealer has requirements and things like that. So I'm working with them to change. But typically, if you are the issuer, it's just much easier. You could just list whatever you need to list on your website on the deals you have done. But if you're engaging broker dealer, it gets tricky on who you could list and what you are saying. And I'm going through all that transition. And right now, SEC has a thing that they propose where as a finder, you might not have to register. It's still in the limbo.
Yeah, we actually had the webinar event last time with securities attorney.
Okay.
He touched upon it, and he strongly believes that it's going to become the law at some point. Nobody knows when, but that was his interpretation of it. But yeah,
yes.
no, good point. And guys, in general, keep in mind that each deal is raised under specific securities law, so depending whether it's 506B or C or maybe Reg A or something else, the rules might be different, and not all of the projects are listed. So I would say you should actively reach out to the operators and syndicators that you're interested in, and just network with people. And through networking, you will find the deals that you're looking for. And to give you an example, we currently have an offering that's for accredited investors only, but I'm not listing it because I know who is accredited in my network. So I'm sharing with the people in my network that are accredited. Great answer, Ketan. Guys, any other questions? Anyone wants to unmute themselves and ask a question? And while we're waiting for that, guys, I also want to mention that since Ketan is talking so much about personal development, he has become a coach, and he is offering his coaching program to anyone who is interested. Ketan, you want to share your contact information and just say a couple words about your coaching program?
Yeah, sure. So for my coaching, one program I have is specific to raising capital that I do in a group setting. That's one program. And the other program is working with you to create your own peak performance program. Because what happens is we have all the information on what to do to buy a property, to analyze, but we might not have the best strategy, or we are not taking the action, we are not leveraging the emotions, the times. So I work with people one-on-one, and I get to see you from outside, right? There's a little bit of space, and I work with you and I challenge you to make these changes consistently over time. So you are performing, whether it's time management, energy management, all of these topics, everything that I've learned, I've packaged into, getting you peak performance. So you are getting to your goals faster versus waiting longer. And of course, the capital raising program, which is all about learning how to raise millions of dollars in a systematic way, serving investors and growing your business and supporting them as well.
Excellent.
I'll drop my email in the chat bar as well.
Yep. Yeah, we can see your email. It's pretty easy. It's ketan@ketanpatel.com
Perfect.
for anyone
Yep.
who is interested. Guys, I don't see any other questions. So Ketan, again, I want to thank you very much for your time and your input. It was an amazing presentation. We see some great comments in the chat already. So thank you very much. And folks, please definitely reach out to Ketan if you're looking for help with improving your capital raising or coaching from someone who's done it and went through it himself. So definitely highly recommend reaching out and speaking with Ketan about that. Thank you very much, everybody.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, everybody, for taking the time. Thank you, and Alina, for giving the opportunity, and wish you everybody great success.
Thank you. Thanks. Take care, guys. I will be sharing the recording, and Ketan will send me the presentation that I'll share as well.
Yep. Take care.
Have a good evening,
Thank
everyone.
you. Have a good night.
Bye.